Have you ever just wished there was one place that you could go and you could find all the resources that you would need, right? I mean, it just is so convenient. It's like when we go shopping, right? I like to go to Target because it has everything from, I don't know, essential oil diffusers all the way down to my grocery list. So it's just nice to be able to do kind of a one-stop thing, right? Well, you're not alone in this. And my guest today had this idea when it comes to really helping women in midlife step into midlife or their second act in a way that best supports them. So she created an online, that's right, an online hub that has everything that you could think of, all sorts of resources for women in midlife, blogs, videos, things of that nature. But it also links you to over 60 people that offer services to this demographic. So don't miss this episode because you'll want to learn a little bit more about Jack Perez and why she decided to create this hub and what it's offering all of us that are in this demographic group. Keep listening.
I know your deep, dark secret. You don't like your life. You're a woman in midlife, and for the past 2 decades or more, you've poured yourself in to other people. You've poured yourself into your career, your family, and yet on the inside, you feel broken. And that's no way to be. I'm Dr. Natalie Marr. I'm a clinical psychologist and a life transition expert. It wasn't too long ago that I was in your shoes, waking up in my early 40s, thinking I've got 2 failed marriages, and I'm a single mom for the second time in my life. And I just knew that I could do better, that I could feel better. Fortunately for you, I have about 20 years experience clinically. And so I've created a method that will help you learn to love your story. I know that the story that you're telling yourself about your life feels awful. And I know that you think that you can't change that. I assure you, you can. And when we work together, I'm gonna help you to craft a different story, a story that you love, a story that makes you want to get up every single day. Let's work together to help you love your story.
So we have a great treat for you today. Welcome back. Who I have on the podcast today is Jack Perez. She's created a hub for midlife women called coollife.com, and that's spelled K-U-E-L life.com. And this is a hub, and I'm going to let her explain more of this to you. But without further ado, let me introduce you to Jack Perez. Jack is a pro-aging champion. She promotes normalizing aging for women through curated content and women-driven brands. With over 60 cool category thought leaders and 40 women-driven brands, Cool Life offers women an opportunity to share, learn, shop, and play with our second act sisters. Having earned an MBA from the University of Chicago, Perez carries a hard-nosed business understanding to the entrepreneur world. Jack's passions include spending time with her son, traveling to exotic, off-the-beaten-path places such as Cuba, Jordan, Zambia, Bolivia, and Zanzibar. An endorphin junkie, Jack is an avid jump roper, a Peloton fanatic, and a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo. So welcome, Jack. We are so excited to have you with us today.
It is so cool to be here, Natalie.
I cannot say cool for my life. I don't know.
I thought that was so cute, though. I was watching you, and I'm like, oh my God, this poor woman.
This poor woman. My grammar training all through school just keeps taking over when I say K-U-E or C-K-U-E-L. It's so funny, but it is a really cool way to spell cool life, though. So before we get started in talking about your hub, though, because I am really excited about that, and I know that my listeners really want to hear about it, let me hear a little bit more about you. So on Learn to Love Your Story, my first question for all my guests is, tell us your story. And it could start from the beginning of time until now, or whatever part of that journey that you want to tell us. But how did you get to where you are today?
That is such a great question, Natalie. And it is. There's like there's so much to unpack, especially by the time you get to our age. Go ahead and ask that question to someone who's like 20. I think it's a lot easier to say. But
Yes.
yeah, so I am a first generation American. My parents were immigrants from Cuba. And so I grew up where the inside of the house was Little Havana and the outside of the house was the US of A. So that was just an interesting way to be brought up. And it's, there were a lot of us. I'm not completely unique or unusual, but it does sort of, I grew up super fast because I had to be the interpreter for the family, and I had to, there were a lot of things that my parents just couldn't do because of cultural and language barriers that, the young person who learned the language could deal with. So that sort of set the stage, I think, for a lot of my personality traits, tenacity, determination, shop for answers. I keep looking for the answer I want. If I don't get the answer I want from one person, I'll just keep on moving till I find the answer I want. Right.
Okay.
And so, I also grew up with a very, very huge mantra from my father that the one thing that they can't take away from you in this world is your education. They can take anything else away, right? And if you think about where he came from, he had been a practicing attorney in Havana, Cuba, and then became a janitor to go back to school. So see my point, like they can take anything away from you, but they can't take away your education. So I did what the good girl does, who listens to her parents. In my 20s, I got the graduate, the undergraduate degree, the graduate degree. I got the job. I found the boy. I did the marriage. I did all of it, the house, all of it. And then I realized really early on, like in my early 30s, that I just did not do well in corporate America. I think I was probably one of the most disappointing hires from the University of Chicago for HP. I wonder if they all sat around going, how did this one get through? I don't know. How did this one get through? I just didn't have what it took to play nicely with others at that level. And I needed to be in an environment where my actions had a much quicker path to reaction, whether it was bad or good. And sadly, corporate America did not afford that for me. My personality just didn't fit. So left in my mid-30s and went to work with my then husband. We started a marketing and PR firm in the Bay Area in San Francisco. And I did that for years. And then we had the baby. And then I decided to leave the marriage and became a fractional executive so I could be there for my child. I know, isn't that, you can make up almost anything in this world. That's what's so interesting.
I love that you did that, though, ahead of the curve, because I know that more of that is happening presently, certainly post-COVID, but even prior to that people were being a lot more like, no, I get to have, my personal life the way I want it and a work life the way I want it, or you don't get to have me. So c'est la vie. That's how people have been showing up to it. But that you did that a little ahead of the curve, because, we've got some miles on us. And so if we were doing that throughout our career, that's pretty big stuff.
It was. And it's interesting that you say ahead of the curve, because our marketing and PR firm was ahead of the curve, meaning we didn't have a brick and mortar facility and we didn't have direct employees. We had a stable of experts from all over that we could bring in just in time for that client's needs. But I'll tell you, Natalie, that was a tough boulder to push uphill back in the 90s. It just, people didn't want to hear it. It was in the Bay Area, people got it. But when I moved across the country to Raleigh, the Raleigh-Durham area, Research Triangle Park. And for how quote unquote Research Triangle Park this place was, it was still good old boy network back. So it was just interesting because now I just sort of shake my head, because now no one thinks twice about the concept of virtual just-in-time team, and no one thinks twice about that. No. But it was hard selling back in the 90s. People did not get it.
Absolutely believe it. It's like getting a job in the 90s was hard enough. Especially for those of us who had no experience, right?
Right.
We were in this recession. And so, the experience kind of sold you if you had a little bit in the 80s, but I did not, because I was still in school.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
yeah, like this is that the 90s were hard enough, but then to be ahead of the curve, that's daring. It says a lot. I get what you're saying about being an adrenaline junkie. It's showing its way. And what's interesting, honestly, to me as a first generation American, you're also having to do a lot of what we call code switching between your family life and your public life. And so one of the things that can happen with people who are in that is they really do get swept up in the programming and conditioning of the world, but you just didn't let that happen. It sounds like, hey, I didn't fit in with HP because I don't know how I got in, but I don't play well in this sandbox. This is not a sandbox for me. And so you really stay true to yourself through all of that. Any insights for my listeners on how you've been able to accomplish that?
God, I think it's just the way I'm wired, meaning, Natalie, it's not necessarily always a good thing to be that way. Honestly, sometimes it has failed me or caused impediments or put me in places that I didn't want to be, because sometimes you do need to fit in. You do need to suck it up. For whatever reason, I start to disappear as a human when I'm sucking it up, meaning you can't reach me anymore. Like, I'm just not here. Like, I'll be perfunctory. Do you know what I mean? Like, I will function. I will do everything I'm supposed to do, but like, you can't find me. It's like, I'm not in there.
It's almost like you're a robot, right? You just go into the robotic. I'm doing the programming and conditioning of culture or family or work or whatever the environment is that I'm in that moment. But the person who's Jack is not there.
Right. Because Jack doesn't do well doing things that are against who I am. And I know that we all have to do that. But and honestly, I wish I had better skill set at times for that. Yeah. But it is what it is. It's who I am, right?
And it is what it is.
And it's the yin and yang.
It's a whole subject matter that I teach in my online courses, that I've done in coaching. This idea of uncovering what programming and conditioning that you're following, like what are the unsaid rules that you're living your life by, that you're being a little bit more robotic in your life. Because I want women to be able to step into an empowered choice with it. You can continue to do what culture is saying is the right thing to do, but it's so different when you're choosing it for yourself, right? I'm choosing to fit in here because it makes sense for me and it serves me, versus when we're just doing it to be the good girl. That's where it gets really damaging for people. And so I'm always fascinated when I hear people who have been able to kind of navigate those weird waters, because they are, and no one's 100% perfect. Like you said, there would have been sometimes it would have been nice if I could have just gone into the fold a little bit easier, but I have this personality, and so this is the one I'm going to have to deal with.
Right? This is the one that I was given this time around, and so this is the one I'm stuck with. But it's interesting because you just made me realize, and I'm having sort of a real-time aha moment with you, which is so weird, because you mentioned how I was ahead of the curve, kind of all along. And interestingly enough, when I launched this digital repository called Cool Life, there was very little out there for women 45 and above. This is 5 years ago. There was nothing really out there. And ever since then, there's this huge proliferation in this marketplace. It's huge. I mean, there are ads for menopause on the TV now.
Yes.
That didn't exist 5 years ago.
No.
That's just 5 years ago. That didn't exist. No. 5 years ago.
They didn't even put pad commercials on, Kotex commercials. I mean, like, there was like nothing of any of that sort.
But my point being that, I saw a problem, 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm so happy to see that other women are also addressing the dearth. It's just there's just this dearth of information for women 45 and above. No one knows what's going on or how to navigate these waters. And I think you're going to find, you may already know this. This might be something that you already know, but maybe your listeners don't know this. We are in an interesting time, Natalie, in the sense that in the early 1900s, white women only lived, the average lifespan of a white woman was about 51. And this is what I love about having this Cool Life platform. I learned this through one of my experts because she is a PhD in women's studies, and she actually shared this information with me. And then I got on and just went to town looking for more information. But so the average lifespan of a white woman was 51. Of a woman of color, it was clearly less than that. Yeah. And that's not to say that we didn't live into our 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 100. Of course we did. But not in the sheer magnitude that we're doing it now.
No. Mm-mm.
Not with the volume that we have now.
There's another piece to this too. Even within the animal kingdom, there is only 2 species, humans being one, that live past menopause, females that live past menopause. And the other one, if I'm remembering correctly, is orcas or killer whales.
It's orcas, I believe. I believe you're right. It is a whale of some kind, but yeah, it is. Right.
And it's a fascinating thought that there's some sort of, evolutionary purpose to women having this kind of second stage of life, second act in life, as you put it. I really think, that we need to uplift and value this, and like your pursuit in creating Cool Life and what you're finding with all of the people that are advertising on that platform now, that we want to do this. Like, we know if we can lift up this group of people has like an ability to caretake the world. They have their hands in the young generations and in the older generations. They have an ability to influence how all of us show up in this world if we can get to this group and lift it up enough, right? So I'm so excited. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about Cool Life? What inspired you to do this? What's it all about? Help my listeners be excited about going online now and finding this website with all of these things. Let me just ask this question. Are you feeling stuck? Are you feeling kind of blah about your life? You're a woman in midlife, and life is pretty good. I mean, you've got your stuff together. You've ticked all the boxes, but you just don't feel like you're stepping into your prime in the way that you'd really like to. And you certainly don't want to go down the road of having a midlife crisis in order to figure all of this out. So if that's you, then my 20-week group coaching program is for you. And guess what? I'm opening it up in 2024. Now, 20 weeks seems like a big commitment. I get it. But I'm here to help you in 2024. I want you to reach your goals. I want you to really design the life that you want to be living. That is my passion. And it's what the 20-week program does. And don't just believe me. Here, I want you to listen to some of the testimonials of other women who have been through this program.
To go through an actual curriculum of videos and thoughtful process of meditation and self-awareness and giving myself self-compassion. And also, probably the biggest thing I gained from this was I now have self-respect. I don't feel that I need to be that person for everybody else. And I can take care of me and not feel guilty. And I can look back at my story and not feel guilty.
Just the self-awareness, the self-acceptance. And I really found the curriculum incredibly helpful for guiding me through that process.
I learned how to speak my truth. I learned how to listen to myself, and I learned how to, in a confrontational situation or a painful situation, take care of my needs.
It just opened up some doors for me to see things more clearly and respect myself more.
Now, doesn't that sound like something that you want to be doing? Now, remember, go to learntoloveyourstory.com right now, and you too can sign up for your complimentary call with me. All you have to do is click on Work With Me and book that complimentary call, or you can head over to resources and read a little bit more about the various programs that I have. I can't wait to have you be part of this in 2024. So, Happy New Year to you, and let's get you into that centered life thriving.
I am thrilled to share because clearly this is a passion of mine. And I started this because I got run over by the menopause train, the physiological changes. Yep. If there was a symptom to be had for whatever reason. My body decided, hey, yeah, let's try that one.
Let's do that.
Let's gain 30 pounds. Sure, why not? Let's make you so anxious that you're practically, paralyzed. Yeah, let's do that. You can't sleep anymore, Missy. No more sleeping for you. And let's dysregulate your emotions. Let's make you so volatile that no one wants to be around you. Let's do that too. And I could go on and on and on.
Oh, I know.
Okay, it sounds like you're nodding in this sort of like, sister, you're preaching to the choir.
Just preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir. I've tried
not
everything.
All women. Right, but not all women suffer that way, thank God, right? But if you do, you know what I'm talking about. And you know how debilitating it is.
Yes.
To the point where women are leaving the workforce in droves,
I know,
in management and upper management, because they are misconstruing their menopausal symptoms, which, by the way, are normal, completely normal. They're misconstruing these symptoms as early onset dementia or Alzheimer's, and they're freaking out. So people, we have to do something about that. We can't be letting legacy knowledge just walk out that door. Intellectual property just walk out that door because of a couple of hot flashes and a little bit of anxiety that is completely fixable. It's fixable. And so anyway, oh my God, I just got so riled up.
That's what inspired you, though. I love that. It's so real, right? It was a personal experience. And then you started to wake up and see that like you weren't the only one that was having this, and that we don't want to lose this legacy of women in this age group with the wisdom that they hold and their capacity to help, the entire world. Like, we don't want to lose that at all.
It would just be such a shame.
Amazing.
Yes. Yeah. So, and then to your point, I thought to myself, if I'm struggling, there is no way I'm that special or unique that I'm like the only one who can't find help out on the World Wide Web.
Right.
And so I thought, well, what if I'm part of the answer? I mean, by no means do I think that I can normalize aging completely on my own, whatever, but I can be part of the sea change. I can be part of the discussion. I can be a voice in the crowd, maybe a louder voice than the others, or helping other people get realize that we all have voices.
Right.
And so I decided to do something, and it was completely for selfish reasons at first, Natalie, but then I realized that what I was doing has the potential to really make a difference. And I know for a fact that Cool Life makes a difference. Sometimes the note cards I get in the mail, or the emails I get, or a text or a voicemail message thanking me for what we're doing, thanking me for finding that thought leader wherever she was who had the answer to her problem. And so that's actually what I did, because I realized that I couldn't be the sole provider. What am I an expert on? Yeah. Not nearly the areas that come up. Like we have so many opportunities and challenges at this time. I mean, everything from, the largest number of divorces are issued by women after 50. Yes. Okay. So now these women have to figure out, are they going to date? If they're going to date, how do they date with a dry vagina? That's important.
That's a good time.
Yeah, that's a good time. Everybody loves that time. The largest number of entrepreneurs entering the marketplace, women after 50. And guess what, Natalie? They're also the most successful.
Well, so, I'm kind of excited about those statistics in juxtaposition with the people who are leaving, because my guess is, and this is exciting for me to go back to that, idea of I try to teach women to choose the programming and conditioning that works for them and choose different for themselves and make empowered choices. That sounds like empowered choices. That sounds like women that are like, I don't want to play in the sandbox with, big corporate agencies anymore. They don't value me. They don't see me. They don't, they're overworking me. They're not using me to the best of my ability. Because if I had more self-care time, I would be able to do better work product. And so that's exciting, is that a lot of women, I think, are leaving, but they're also starting up their own stuff. And that's way better, in my opinion, for all of us.
Oh, I agree. But it's not way better for corporate America, because corporate America is losing, like we said just about 5 minutes ago, right? So yeah, I think it is great. And I think it's women having agency and saying, listen, I'm, for whatever reason, if I can't get past the glass ceiling, or ageism is huge. I mean, and it's not just for women. Men have the same issue with ageism as women. That's a universal problem. But it's wonderful to see. But to my point, though, I could keep going. I could keep going and going about the opportunities and challenges that present themselves at this time in life. And when I talk about normalizing aging, when I talk about that process, for me, what that means, Natalie, is, let's say you ended up having children, whether you wanted them or not, you ended up having them. And now they're at that stage where they're leaving your home.
Yep.
So you, as a empty nester, might have your passport in hand, opening the car door, barely slowing down and just pushing them out.
Yep.
Or you could be the woman that goes home and goes into that child's room and sits on the bed and grabs the pillow and smells and cries. And do you know what? They're both normal.
Yeah,
they're both normal reactions.
Absolutely.
And no woman should be made to feel ashamed or guilty for either of those reactions. And here's actually the real thing, is that the same woman can have both days, have both moments.
I'm so glad you said that, though, because that's really the bigger thing, I think, is we have a broad range of emotions through this life transition. And, on any given day, we're fluctuating within that. We're not bipolar. I'm a psychologist. That's not a thing. Like, you're not swinging your mood and you're not like somehow now cracked in the head. That's not how this works. We just have that breadth in our emotional ability. And if we have a granular understanding of our emotions and self-compassion for ourselves, we do much better, because we notice those things and we can accept and be kind and understanding with ourselves, kind of ride the wave of it and then move on to the next right thing in our life.
And so, yes, what you just said that just further makes the point of why I decided to create a platform called Cool Life, and why I work so diligently at finding the experts from wherever they are, because there are women already providing this wisdom, these life hacks, these tips, these tricks, creating these courses, writing books, to help other women.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, why not bring as many of these together under one sort of, quote, roof, virtual umbrella. Yeah. So that gives women a vehicle by which to get information, because information is power. And what better way to navigate the season than just to be informed?
Exactly. No, I'm with you 100%. Yep. I think that, but even just the convenience, right, of having it all be in one place makes life a little bit easier during a time that life has already got a lot you're juggling, right? So the other piece of why I really loved the concept of coollife.com is that it's all in one section. Like, if I have thoughts about menopause, I could probably find some things there. If I have thoughts about changing my career, I can probably find some things there. If I have thoughts about, some other aspect of my life, dating, whatever. The beauty is it's the demographic that draws us to it, but there's so much to us within that demographic.
Exactly. Right. We are complex. I mean, and varied. I mean, all of us are complex and varied. And so to your point, the women that write for Cool Life, the topics that they address, each has sort of a lane, right? The topics they address, the way they approach them through the filter of what is relevant and important to a woman in midlife and beyond about this subject, whether that be, parenting, whether that be fashion. Okay, just because I'm 59 years old does not mean I stop caring about what I wear or how my skin looks or my hairstyle. I'll tell you, we care. I can tell you because I know the numbers. I know how well the articles do. fashion and beauty are important to us, and we should not feel ashamed or guilty or feel frivolous. You know what? I want to look good.
Yep. Yep. And again, I go back to this, it's just the concept of the day, I guess, but I go back to this idea of programming and conditioning, or the unsaid rules of the world, are not things that are bad. They're just things, right? They don't have any value, good or not good. What happens is when we're swept up in it, like my worthiness comes from the hustle of looking pretty enough and being thin enough, that's problematic. So you have to uncover where those programs are running, essentially, in the background in your life, and then bring it into your self-empowerment, choice, like a choice-based thing. And this is what I think is beautiful about what you're saying is it doesn't mean that we have to all stop wearing makeup, stop giving a crap about what we look like so that we can abolish this idea of our prettiness is our worthiness. We just have to choose differently for ourselves. That's it. That's really, it's about stepping into it and saying, oh no, I dye my hair because I think it's really pretty to have streaks. That's why I'm doing it. I couldn't care less about what you think of my age or not my age or whatever. I just do it because it's something I like.
100%. And yes, right. I'm in violent agreement. Yes.
So in what you've done, is there anything that you want to share with us, like how this kind of progressed across time? I mean, you have, what did you say, 60 people that are hosted on this site? Is that right?
The bio you have is a little outdated. I think we're at 65 now. And women from around the world. I mean, I have women that write for us that are from New Zealand, Australia, Spain, the UK, Canada, all over the US. We don't have any South American or African women, but I'm not done yet. So
you're not done yet. Yeah,
I'm not done yet. And what I love, so at the beginning, Natalie, you can only imagine, right? I built the website. I'm not a website developer. I'm not technically minded at all.
I'm so glad there's others like me. I'm finally having somebody build my website, but I've been doing my own for a while and it's not pretty.
Well, no, I built mine with Band-Aids, chewing gum, and buckets of tears. But it looked like that. It was made like that, And when I would try to reach out to these women, and tell them what I was doing, and I had nothing to show for it, maybe 2 or 3 articles that I had written and a crappy website and no social media presence, no followers, almost every single woman said, yeah, I want to be part of it. Well, this sounds important. I want to be part of it.
That speaks to something. That is so neat. I mean, really, that speaks to what you're ahead of the curve, but what you felt like needed to be a thing, and that there's more of us out here that feel like it needs to be a thing.
And what's wonderful now is that I don't have to stalk women, because now my thought leaders make introductions, or I am now out there enough that LinkedIn is a wonderful vehicle. I have gotten several women through LinkedIn that have reached out to me and said, listen, that thought leader roster looks impressive. How I'm interested in it. How does one become a thought leader? And so now I'm in the role of just harnessing the best that's out there for our community. Mm-hmm. And it's a wonderful place to be. And we have some really heavy hitting women out in that roster. I mean, we have women who have dressed Tina Fey and Serena Williams writing about fashion for us. We have women who have been guests on Saturday Night Live writing about the importance of laughter for us. We have PhDs, we have medical doctors writing about weight loss and permanent weight loss. We tackle all the subjects, no matter how difficult they are, including, say, dry vagina. It's just that we really focus on doing it in an empowering, kind way.
Yes.
A useful way, so women can utilize that information to improve their state of being, whatever that is. And so I think it's wonderful now, because now I've become more a curator of the knowledge, and I'm thrilled. I'm just thrilled, and I feel like we're making a difference. We're helping to define what a woman after 45 and beyond can look like.
Yeah. Yeah. What it can be like, not just look like, but what it could be like, what you can step into and
Right.
start to make changes so that your life feels more comfortable and not, not so, there's just like a cliff, doesn't it seem? Like midlife is like this sheer cliff for a lot of women because our social currency changes so rapidly, so quickly.
And it's hard. It is hard.
Hard.
It is hard.
Yes.
It is hard to transition from utilizing your looks and your body to other things when those things aren't the currency at hand for you anymore.
Well, your looks, your body. Some of us, also use things like our caretaking, right? Our mothering. So some people who choose that kind of life. And
yeah,
what
there's that one too.
move
Clearly,
out, right?
clearly,
Yeah.
clearly I didn't choose that one so much because
Right.
it wasn't top of mind.
That's it. To each our own, right?
No, I know, but I think
However,
that's really funny that you're like mothering, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's that one.
Yep,
That's
there's
true.
that one. But there's these ways that we've in hustle culture hustled for our worthiness,
Right.
and now the bottom dropped out of how we're going to get that need met. And some of it is just natural, like kids grew up and aged out, like you were saying earlier, or
Right.
it could just be something like skin and collagen don't puff anymore. All of this gravity is starting to take hold of. So that's just what it is. And there's
not a lot we can do about it.
Anything wrong.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything or miss something that we should have been doing. This is just natural part of aging. But what our culture doesn't allow for is for us to be aged. Like that's, I'm sorry, fucked up. Like it's just fucked up.
It is, but it goes back to what we were talking about earlier about not having the sheer number of us in aging and then aging so visibly. We're aging way more visibly than we ever did before because of social media. I see women our age and older on social media all the time, glamored out in bathing suits, blah, blah, blah. It's in our face in a way that when I was younger, older people just seemed to kind of disappear,
kind of going
like after like 45 or 50, it was just sort of like, I didn't even remember those people existed. Oh my God.
It's an interesting observation because social media has allowed us to do is create visibility, create representation, without having to go through authorities to get it there. Like it doesn't have to be in a magazine. It doesn't have to be on television. Those mediums are still alive and well. However, we have this whole other set of medium that is like, I just can pick up my phone and start it right now, today, if I want to do that. I don't have to wait for anybody. That's an interesting observation because you're right. I think that some of the representation is there that never was there before.
And I believe that's just going to be, I don't believe that's going to slow down. Mm-hmm. I honestly believe that is going to speed up, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can see the difference already I have a lot of intergenerational relationships. I have friendships with women who are significantly younger than I am. Some that are significantly older, but as I get older, that significant older part starts to become less and less significant because we're just running out of runway. I'm just running out of runway north for anything significantly older. I'm just running out of runway.
I feel that. That's real. That's some real talk right there.
Unless I start hanging out with 120-year-olds, I know. It's just like, but my point being that what I'm finding with the younger generation, which was not where I was coming from, is that I don't feel like they're treating me in an ageist sort of way. When they speak to me, when they talk to me, I don't hear, if anything is limiting, it's what's going on in my own head. If there's any limiting feeling or any limiting sort of behavior, it's stuff that I'm doing to myself, meaning like maybe I should excuse myself from this conversation. I'm so much older than everybody. Maybe my presence here is not appropriate. They're not doing that. They're not making me feel that way. They're not behaving in any way. It's my own stupid soundtrack.
Yep.
Which I am working on, by the way, because when it happens, I'm like,
Yeah.
If they didn't want to be here, they would leave the room.
Is a big challenge, and a good one to point out is that we still hold our own programming and conditioning from the the generations that the runway is running out of. So it's good that they're running out of runway, but we still have some of that limiting belief embedded in us.
Yep.
And so we have to be wary of that. But what is encouraging to hear is that you see, social media and this next millennial generation and younger generations coming up as not treating us in that same way. So hopefully, with the death of that and us working on our limiting beliefs, we can kind of eradicate that women feel aging is a thing at all.
It's a death sentence for women. Yes. Yeah, I do. I think we're making, it's slow. And also, I mean, when I talk to younger women, there's still oh my God, there's so much that needs to be changed. Our younger women are still struggling. Our younger women are still struggling. And I had a couple conversations with women who are, juniors in college, and I was asking them, and she was basically saying to me, well, now you're expected to be the boss bitch, plus still have the perfect butt and the perfect skin. And I'm like, oh God, did we make it worse for you?
Yeah.
Like, did we make it worse for you? Like, did we add more stuff to your plate that you have to be good at? I'm so sorry.
I don't know that we weren't there at the beginning of time when these things got ladled on, but there is some remnants of holding ourselves accountable in that hustle culture.
Right.
And women's beauty is still, it's a big patriarchal, oppressive technique. It just is. If you keep us occupied in how we're looking, then we're using less brain power in how we're showing up in the world. That's just the reality of it.
Right.
And there's lots of evidence of, even showing women thin in magazines in the late 1800s, early 1900s, was a way to get rich women to be waif-like and not have a lot of energy and not take up
cause problems
in the world.
Yeah,
Right.
cause less problems. They were too tired to have an opinion.
So there's I'm just saying, this is not going to go away overnight, but I do find some encouragement in the way that you're, seeing social media can be kind of this new place for representation. And if we can have hubs like yours on Cool Life, like we also have a place to go that gives us all the information that we could desire at this stage in our life, and we can access the right things at the right time instead of waking up in a hot sweat for the umpteen millionth time, not getting good sleep and whining to ourselves, why isn't there any information out there on this stuff? So it's super encouraging how you have made a little dent in your corner of the world, for certain.
Tiny dent, but tiny dent, but now I'm not so alone anymore. Now I have all these other women who are chipping away at this aging situation dilemma with me. And here's the other thing. It's like, not only do they want to keep us, weak, they also want to keep us divisive. And I think women need to remember that it is better for them if we are squabbling and bitching at each other about whether you color your hair or I don't color my hair, or, does she Botox, does she no Botox? I mean, ladies, who the F cares? That stuff, not worth your time and energy. And once again, if we are not divisive, the sheer number of us, we can't be ignored. Like, if we stop quarreling with each other and and I get why historically we come by this competitiveness, for a reason. Yeah. When we were younger and growing up and just getting into corporate America, you would look in that room and there might be one chair for a skirt, maybe one chair for a skirt. And if your skirt wasn't in there, good luck. And so how are you going to get in that room? By being nice to the woman next to you? By helping her? No. But now, this is the best part. My table, full of chairs. Every single butt is a woman's butt in that chair. And you know what? Another one wants to come, I'll move over. I'll share my chair. Or I will go get another chair.
Oh, I love it. I love your vigor around this because I'm right there with you. So one other question I'd love to ask you, because I like to help my listeners kind of build their own internalized wisdom, but any wisdom that you could impart on when we're in this midlife transition and feel stuck, what's a bit of advice that you would give?
It's funny because I'm stuck right now. So maybe the advice I give you is advice I should, right?
That will help people.
Yeah, it's interesting. So for right now, what I'm doing to unstick myself is actually allowing myself to slow down rather than shoving more stimuli at me and more offers and more opportunities and chasing down more things. I'm actually saying, no, I'm going to allow myself to be bored a little bit. I'm actually going to allow myself. My best friend called me out yesterday. She called me. She's like, I've been worried about you. You've been talking about having this low level depression. She goes, you just come across as aimless right now. And if you know me really well, aimless is not a vocabulary word that is typically used to describe me.
Yeah,
but
I can't imagine. After just listening to you today, I can't imagine that's a word that comes up as an adjective for you.
But it's where I am right now. It's like, what do I want to do? Do I want to do I want to get on the TED stage? Do I want to pursue that book? Do I want to start my own podcast? What am I going to do? I'm a little stuck and I can't do them all, right? Yeah. Because you have to pick. And then I'm also facing that whole, how many more years do I have? And I realize I have a lot, but I still have fewer left than I've already spent. Yeah. And that's just a math game. I'm not upset about, there's actually zero emotion around that, Natalie. It is a pure math game. And so there's a part of me that's like, well, you can't take too long to figure this out. You can't be aimless for too long, because if you're aimless for too long, you've just wasted all those days, all those hours, all those minutes.
Yeah.
Or you could take advantage of the fact that you can afford yourself to slow down, even though you've never done it in 59 years. Maybe you should this time. And just kind of see, maybe you should this time. So I guess what I would say as advice for your listeners is, if they are the type of woman who goes from thing to thing to thing and never slows down, and their to-do list is longer than any human should ever have, that maybe it's time to let yourself be bored. Maybe it's time to say no to everything and kind of wipe the slate clean. You know how people do those weird, I should say weird, I just put judgment on it. Sorry. You know how people do those food things where they take rid of everything and then they add one thing back?
Yeah. Elimination diets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do them.
Okay. And I didn't mean the weird part. It's different than it's
just allergies suck. That's all.
Yes. And I'm one of those individuals that, thank God, I've got plenty of problems. That one just doesn't happen to be one of them. But it's almost like an elimination diet of your life, right?
That's an interesting parallel. And so many of my listeners will know what an elimination diet is. So
good. You had to teach it, but I learned today what one was. I didn't know, but I knew in my head what the concept of what I was talking about. It's just almost an elimination diet for your life. And then you add back the stuff that really matters, because at the end of the day, it is a math game and you don't have as many years left as you've already used up.
No.
Like it or not. I mean, I'm sorry I'm just reporting the news. I'm not,
Reporting the news is
just reporting the news.
Yeah. I like that. Slowing down. That's a great one.
And that can be really challenging for a lot of us. I mean, I know a lot of women. I know that I'm not that unique in the pace that I keep and in the avarice that I have for next. I know that I'm not alone.
Yep. No, the hustle culture. And if you're adrenaline junkie, like you're getting you're getting dopamine networks. There's lots of things that are happening internally when you're doing that. And so we do literally get addicted to it. Like we do. So the hustle culture really facilitates that for us. But for some of us, it's really hard to slow down, almost to the degree of we're frightful. We're like fearful when we start slowing down that something is really, really wrong. But that
Yes.
might mean that it's really, you're doing it correctly. And your nervous system is just saying, we're doing a thing we've never done. Like, do we really want to do this? And I just remind people, like, that's a growth edge. It just means you're going into territory that's not been developed in the neural pathways in your brain. You're creating new neural pathways, new maps in your brain, and your brain gets nervous when it's doing new things always. So don't get mad at the stage fright. Just kind of like, could we get all the butterflies flying in one formation? That's the butterflies are there, but can we get them in one direction?
Yeah. And I'm just glad to hear that it's actually beneficial for your brain to do this, because I think it's very key to keep our brains engaged, because
Absolutely.
I'm reading this book that is scaring the pants out of me right now called Outlive. Have you heard? It's written by a doctor, Peter something or other. It's so funny because he refers to himself as Not So Thin Peter in the book several times. So I think of his name as Not So Thin Peter, but that's not his name. He's an MD of some sort. But he talks about these, the four horsemen that are coming for us, right? Yeah. And one of them is dementia. I mean, that we're more than likely to die out of one of these four horsemen. And neurological Alzheimer's dementia is one of them. And the longer you can stave it off, I mean, the better quality lifespan you have. And, I'm assuming everybody just doesn't want a lifespan. They want a health span to go with it, because I don't want to just live. I do not want to do what my mother did, which was she died for 10 years. I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend 10 years dying. I'd like to do it very quickly. Thank you.
Yeah.
A couple weeks tops, just so I can get my ducks in a row, but just a couple weeks.
Well, but I, dementia it's real. It's tied to diet and nutrition. The more research that we do, they're calling it kind of diabetes type 3. So it does have to do with insulin resistance and, just burning out.
Which is great news, right? Because what that means is it's like 70% lifestyle choices, but that's great news because it means it's within our control.
It's within our control. We can start making different choices.
Yeah. So you can fix it, and I work really hard at trying to stave off those four horsemen.
Yeah, I believe that. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Where can my listeners find you, or where do you want me to send them? And all the links will be in my notes as well.
The site, I think, is a great place for your listeners to go if they're looking for empowering, practical information on the opportunities and challenges that they're in the middle of. And then we're on all the social media platforms. I mean, you name it. Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter, Facebook. We have a Facebook group, so we'd love to, come join the Facebook group. But that's it. I'm out there, and you can reach me through any of those platforms.
So KUELLIFE.com.
Perfect. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. This was so much fun.
Because I am a licensed clinical psychologist in the state of Minnesota, I have to make sure at the end of each of these episodes that I give you the disclaimer that none of the material that I talk about in these podcasts is meant to replace any kind of therapy or formal medical or mental health treatment. And in fact, anything that I offer on my website, my coaching programs, any kind of psychoeducational materials that I release are not a replacement for that level of care. So just take that into account when you listen. This is information for you, and hopefully you find it of value, both as an educational tool and for your entertainment. And I also want to mention that if anyone you know is in a mental health crisis, needs additional help, I always include these two crisis resources. They're available to anybody. Pick up the phone and dial 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And you can always visit their website at suicidepreventionlifeline.org. Additionally, there's actually a crisis text line. So if you're not somebody that likes to pick up the phone,
Text HOME, home, to 741-741.
To the Crisis Text Line. And you can find them online at crisistextline.org. Thank you for listening to my podcast. And I hope that you like and follow me wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe consider leaving me a review. It always helps me to keep this podcast relevant when I know what you want to hear about.